Hey, hey, hey! What's up, everybody? It's Kevin here. It has been kind of a busy day today. I was certain that I was going to be here at 6 o'clock, and then there were a lot of things that delayed me being here. But we are going to take the opportunity to go through, what it is that we may not know about time, seasons, and calendars. Originally, I was going to talk about weapon and things of that nature. Hold on, let me see if my thing is loading. Because it is computer has been doing a lot. Originally, I was going to talk about how time is used that too often we talk about the idea of using time as a weapon or just talking about weapons in general or things being weaponized. We often do it from the standpoint of the conspiracy theory type of thing. And I don't want the channel to be about that too much. I want it to be about us being focused on being aware so that we're able to use things as our tools instead of constantly worrying about what's being turned into a conspiracy theory that could lead into something being weaponized. And I wanted to talk about this aspect of time because I think that when it comes to the cycle used to um, the usual way of seeing like the new year, and there are stuff that we um, do that we don't even question. And so I wanted to bring things to the forefront by discussing some of these things. So if you're here, please leave your like and your comment. Um, that reminds me, I need to see if I turn the comments on for this particular channel. I'm not sure. I mean for the video, because recently I have come to find out that I've been forgetting about the you have to. It's so annoying. You you have to make sure that you don't that you have the kids thing selected, or else the comments won't show. If it's not selected at all, or you hit yes, it's for kids, then um, it automatically just will not allow the comments to come in. And I know that I've recently have had to talk with people about that. So I have to make sure that this is working on here as well. So let me check this out really quickly, just to make sure that everything is um, up to task here. It's so annoying. Okay, let me see. So am I? Okay, I would probably have to do that after the video. All right, it's fine. Uh, oh, it's a pain in the neck. But no matter. We're gonna move on. Hey, Luana, good to see you. I hope you're doing well. So I actually don't know how. I actually don't know where to start. I think that. See what we're gonna do here. What could be used as a good introduction for this conversation. The best way to start this is to talk about the just talk about the months in general, because I don't think we have an understanding of how the month thing works. Um, so as you all know, y'all may have noticed like how our months kind of look weird depending upon see, where is it? Let's see, did I save it? Um, Depending upon like the origin of the months and like how do we get our names for the months. And it's kind of it's like is it that we are in September but it's the 9th month? How are we in October when it's the 10th month? November when it's the 11th month, and then December the 12th month, when all these numbers on on these months are very, very different. Well, a lot of that has to do with how the new year was supposed to be done in the original Julian calendar that eventually led us into our Gregorian calendar. So we're going to look into that really quickly. I'm going to share my screen. Because again, these are things that people just may not know or not be aware of. And I think it's important for us to have an understanding of this as we um, understand how to navigate the seasons and cycles of time to have some form of clarity or have an understanding of certain celebrations in time. So let's see. I hope everyone can hear me. I'm trying to do this. I have a very slow computer. This is what happens when you don't have a Mac. But let's see. I don't need the sound because there's no sound here. So if you can see the screen, let me know. It should say the origin and meaning of the 12 months. Okay, good. You can hear me, and you should be able to see me then. That's good. Okay. So here we go. 2024. So here we get into the Gregorian key invented by Romulus, who is the first king of Rome in 753 BC. Calendar had 12 months like our current calendar, but only 10 of the months had formal names. Basically, winter was a dead period when, an unalive period, I should say, I guess, when the government and military weren't active. So they only had names for the times we think of as March through December. So this is going to be very important because we're going to learn something about March that kind of helps us to understand why people see March as the new year and a new cycle of stuff and things like that. Okay, um, so here's a March. So here is the months at the time with the Roman calendar. So we have March, which was the month for Mars, the god of war, because this was the month when active military campaigns resumed. That, as you can see, this is the first month that is on the Roman calendar. That lets you know that this was considered to be the first of the year according to that calendar. You can see the screen. That's good. That's good. So, and then there was May and June, which were names for the goddesses of Maya and Juno. So let's see real quick about these particular. Well, I won't get to that. I won't get to that right now. But April was thought to be the stem from the Latin aperio, which means to open, a reference to the open buzz of springtime. And then the rest of the months were numbered. Their original names in Latin, meaning the fifth quintilius, the sixth sextilius, the seventh, which is September, the eighth October, the ninth November, and the 10th month December. So as you can see, this is where originally we had gotten our months from. So it was from March, and then I think it was May and June, and then April, and then this is how we got the 5th through 10th month. So in case you ever wondered why we got September, October, November, December, this is why. Eventually, January and February were added to the ends of the year, giving all 12 months proper names. So the question is, how is it that these months that were at the end of the year suddenly became at the beginning of the year? All right. So this is what we're going to start diving deeper into. So we get into the Julian calendar updates. When Julius Caesar became Pontifex Maximus, he reformed the Roman calendar so that the 12 months were based on the Earth's revolution around the sun. It was a solar calendar as we have today. January and February moved to the front of the year, and leap years were introduced to keep the calendar year lined up with the solar year. The winter months, January and February, remain a time of reflection, peace, new beginnings, and purification. It's just that now it wasn't done at the end of the year. it was moved to the beginning. All right. After Caesar's death, the month Quintilius was renamed July in honor of Julius Caesar in 44 BC, and then later Sextilius was renamed August in honor of the Roman Emperor Augustus in 8 BC. Of course, all this renaming and reorganizing meant that some of the months' names no longer agreed with their position in the calendar, September to December, for example. Later, emperors tried to name various months after themselves, but those changes did not outlive them. So let's get into the origin of the names real quick. So January is named for the Roman god Janus, which is the protector of gates and doorways. Janus is depicted with two faces, looking into the past and the other into the future. In ancient Roman times, the gates of the temples of Janus were open during times of war and closed in times of peace. So this is part of the reason why they ended up when they renamed it the civil year from the civil new year from March to January. It was from that aspect of Janus. Now it was done at the end of the year when it came to like the winter solstice because they were doing it from the lunar calendar. But when they changed it to the solar calendar, it was to represent moving from the past and entering into the future. All right. Then you have February, which is to cleanse. February means to cleanse. The Roman calendar of Februarius was named Febrilia, a festival of period of atonement during this purification and atonement during this period. All right. And then March, which is the Roman god named after the Roman god of Mars. This was to resume military campaigns interrupted by winter. March was also a time of many festivals in preparation for the campaigning season. So March was usually like the month to begin campaigns for war, right? So that was also what made it interesting how they made that into the new year. And then there's the holiday festivals and stuff. And so you have April, which means the bud and plant throughout the month. It was the month that was viewed as spring's renewal. Then you have the May, the Roman goddess Maya, which oversaw the growth of plants. So we can see from April and May how it makes reference to the spring. So basically, you had in the beginning, you had the start of the new year. If you were starting in March, beginning the festivals and resuming war essentially. And then it was about the focus on budding and blooming. Then you had June, which was named after Juno, the patroness of marriage and the well-being of women. It also comes from Latin juventilis, which means young people. Interesting. Then there's July, named after Julius Caesar. And he was the one who helped develop the Julian calendar, which is the precursor to the Gregorian calendar we have today. We have August, which is named after Augustus Caesar, which means venerable, notable, and majestic. September, which means 7. October, that means 8. October, that means 8. Let's see what else. And then in Old English is known as Winmanoth, which means wine month. Interesting. Which was the time of the year when wine was made. The English also call it as Winterfelleth or winter full moon. They consider this full moon to be the start of winter. In weather lore, we know if October brings heavy frost and winds, then January and February will be mild. November is the 9th month from the Roman calendar, and December is the 10th month. And so that's really how we got the calendar of today. They really moved around a lot of stuff. And let's see if I can get this focus back on me. There we go. There we go. Able to kind of move around. The freezing? Hold on. Can you all hear me well? This thing, let's see. Wow. Okay. Let me see if I can remove you. Okay, so there we go. From the Roman calendar that was set on the lunar calendar. We're going to talk about the lunar calendar very soon, but we see how these months were changed around for a particular purpose for the Gregorian calendar to make it into the solar calendar. Then this is how you start seeing how in the and it worked out very well. We're going to get more into that too, as to how the solar calendar more accurately depicted the Earth's revolution, but also how it kind of how the seasons worked and everything, but also in particular how it made certain changes with like how festivals operate, how certain cycles operate and everything. That's part of the reason why there's like back and forth with how the year. That explains that. This gives us a little background. Hello, Empress Kia, good to see you. My computer is trying, and I have no idea why it's wanting to act this way, but all right, we're just gonna work. I've been having some technical difficulties. I think if Q was here, if Q the Eclectic Terror was all that, because I've been having had quite a day today when it came to technical difficulties. All right, so we got that taken care of. Let's go ahead and get into our next um uh tab. I'm trying to figure out which one I want to really get into. Into the lunar calendar year, why the solar calendar actually rules our lives. I think this is a perfect into this particular topic. So I'm going to allow it to load. By the way, back. Move layout. Oh, add the stage. That's why. Okay, so not that one. I don't want that one. Let's see. Let's try this one. Much better. In fact, I think I'll do it this way. All right, there we go. So this thing is still loading. So it says the Gregorian calendar. The calendar you certainly use today on a day-to-day basis is the Gregorian calendar, which has been the standard system, which we read earlier. Pope Gregory the 13th introduced the new timekeeping method to stop the drift of seasons that was caused by the inaccuracy of that ancient Roman calendar. He wasn't a moment too soon either. The old calendar was 10 days off by that point, leading to the problems of determining the date of Easter. Easter itself is determined with a lunar calendar, however, as the Catholic Church liked the idea of the calendar's equinox being closer to what was being observed. The Gregorian calendar is entirely solar in nature. Easter, in its principles, celebrated on the first full moon after the spring equinox. It became vital then that the date of the equinox be correct. Why do we use the calendar designed for the Catholic Church? This calendar was adopted by the Catholic countries right away and the colonies soon after as a civil calendar. The Protestant nations followed after a couple of hundred years for better timekeeping and to simplify working with their neighbors. Islamic Turkey, which had used the Islamic lunar calendar for all official business, switched over in 1926. So what exactly is the lunar calendar anyway? The Gregorian calendar is a solar calendar. This solar calendar gives an update based on the position of the sun in relation to the stars behind it. The seasons are based on the equinoxes and correspond to the declination of the sun. A lunar calendar is different. The cycle it records are based on the monthly phases of the moon. A month starts when the moon reaches a certain phase in a certain location, and a year is defined as 12 months of this kind. The months in the Gregorian calendar are not calculated in this way. So as you can see the pictures right here of the moon, which is where we would get the idea of the lunar calendar. So with the solar calendar, it was more focused on Easter falls on different months. So with the solar calendar, they were more focused on the Earth's rotation and revolution around the sun. With the lunar calendar, they were more focused on the phases of the moon to determine each month and to determine the cycles and the seasons. Really, they were determining that with the lunar calendar, they were determining that by the months. Whereas with the solar calendar, they were really determining to try to find the accuracy of the seasons. All right. And yet, that is true. Like I just said, like you had just said, Easter falls on different months. That's because that's an entirely different calendar that determines Easter, which is again on a lunar calendar. All right. So let's continue on. So what are the practical differences? First of all, the lunar year is only 354 days, give or take a few. This means holidays and festivals determined by a lunar calendar, such as Easter, the Chinese New Year, or Rosh Hashanah, will seem to shift by as much as 11 days a year with respect to a solar calendar. Also, since months are determined by phases of the moon, by the phases the moon is in as seen over a particular place, the length of a month is not standardized and can vary by as much as a day. Months can even start on different days in different places. This is still a problem for many people as debate continues on whether the month of Ramadan, which is a lunar month, should start based on local observations of the moon, or if the phase observed over Mecca should be used. Very interesting. Okay, so does anybody still use the lunar calendar as a standard one? So Nepal is a hybrid lunar solar one, which is used by the legal standard, used as the legal standard for setting dates. Israel uses the old Hebrew calendar for a few civil functions, while largely relying on the Gregorian calendar. Like Nepal, it is lunar solar calendar. It is a lunar solar calendar. If I could actually get that out of my mouth, which has lunar months and solar years. Um, that's true. Um, while there are a few other countries that don't use the Gregorian calendar, almost all of them use solar calendars. Lunar calendars do have holidays are determined as Easter, Ramadan, Rosh Hashanah, and the Chinese New Year are all determined by lunar months. These holidays are legal holidays around the globe. So the lunar holiday now is more focused on turning the holidays, like again, like certain holidays, certain seasons, but not really used overall like it once was. Now the solar calendar is used to try to get an accurate depiction of how to navigate through seasons. All right. So let's continue. Um, the if the lunar calendar is still used, The position of the moon can mean many things to many people. For some, the position of the moon plays a large role in the effectiveness of ritual activities. This I know to be true. I've actually seen this online, and I've seen this on YouTube. People often use the whole lunar cycles for their own rituals, even when they're trying to determine things by the full moon and things like that. Today, the typical person who sets their schedule to the phases of the moon might seem a little off. However, historically, they would have been in good company, as some of the oldest calendars known were lunar ones. In any case, the use of the lunar calendar by practitioners of the occult has no real bearing on its merits as a timekeeping system. People all over the world rely on two calendar systems. One solar, which determines what day it is, and one lunar, which determines when festivals occur. While there are only a few countries in the world that have any incarnation of a lunar calendar in an official capacity, the echo of ages past, when lunar calendars were more prominent, still rings out in our modern lives. All right. So there is that. That explains how we moved from a lunar calendar to a solar one. Let's see here. Let's see. Empress Kia said the preamble lunar eclipse is on Monday night. Oh, right. That's okay. That makes sense. So that would be very interesting. I wonder how often, because I don't know how eclipses are viewed, with the whole lunar calendar thing. Because I know it probably has no real bearing on a solar calendar. But I often wonder, like, when it comes to a lunar, look into that. But yeah, it's on Monday night. Okay. Yeah, because this is the time of the eclipses. There's going to be the eclipse that's coming at the end of this month, and then there is the solar eclipse that's supposed to be happening in April. So this is a very 2024 is a very interesting time period when it comes to these. And whatever esoteric meaning that has, that I guess that goes back into the whole occult thing, right? Okay, we're gonna go into. Okay, so the next one that we're gonna go into is on teachastronomy.com, and it is, I think it's like I know it's like a textbook or something. So we're gonna get into that. By the way, if you have as you come in, hopefully I'll be able to fix that whole comment section thing once I'm done with the stream. All right. So it says chapter 2, early astronomy. This is particularly dealing with solar and lunar calendars. All right. So this says, well, I thought about getting to dividing time. I think I may say that for later because that's a little bit complicated. So the cycles of the sky have been used to divide time throughout human history. A calendar marks a solar year, the time that it takes for the Earth to return to the same place as its orbit of the sun. The natural division is the day. The natural division of time is the day, the time it takes for the sun to return to its highest position in the sky or cross the meridian. Modern accurate measurements show that a solar year equals 365.2424199 days. Notice the large number of significant figures. We know the duration of the time of the Earth's orbit with an accuracy of better than a second. Let's see. The moon has also been used to mark time. The best measurements to show that a lunar month is 29.53059 days. Sorry, 29.53059 days. This is the time between occurrences of the same lunar phase, also known as a synodic month. We should not be surprised that these are not whole numbers. It would be completely fortuitous if three objects in space moved in such a way that a lunar orbit took the exact number of Earth rotations, or an Earth orbit of the exact or an Earth orbit took the exact number of Earth rotations. Nor does a lunar month divide evenly into a solar year. Uh, 365.24 divided by 29.53 equals 12.37. So counting the months would not give a good calendar of keeping track of the season. The Babylonians had a very accurate calendar of 365.26 days. This number quoted is in 5 significant features and differs by only I have no idea why people are calling me while I'm doing the recording. Unfortunately, so let's see here. The quote is in 5 significant figures and differs by only um, about 30 minutes out of from the true astronomical number. Reviews the ideas of accuracy and significant figures. Unfortunately, we inherited our calendar from the Romans, who had lost the knowledge of the Babylonian calendar. Our calendar has some very unusual features. I wonder what it would have been to have the Babylonian calendar, especially with as accurate as it was. Oh my gosh, you can't even see. Oh my, okay, hold on. Okay, so let me do this again and make this bigger. So, oh, probably too big. Okay, sorry about that. So let's go through that again. So the Babylonians had an accurate calendar of 365.26 days. This number is quoted in 5 significant figures and differs only 30 minutes of the true astrological number. Unfortunately, we inherited our calendar from the Romans, who had lost the knowledge of the Babylonian calendar. Our calendar has some very unusual features. So as I was saying, with that type of accuracy, I wonder what would have happened if you had stuck with the Babylonian one. Would that be obviously it was still different from the lunar calendar, but I wonder how it would have been to have that type of system if it was around. But let's continue. There's no need to worry about that. We got the Roman calendar. So the earliest Roman calendar from the 7th century BC had only 304 days. Not 365, but 304 days. And it began in mid-March. This was when the snow had melted enough for the Roman soldiers to go off on their conquest. So you can even see that the beginning of their calendar was about going off for war. Just like it was saying that the March was the month of war, named after Mars. So that's what started their new year. The snow melted for them to go off and go cause wars. The first month was March, named after the Mars, the god of war. This was also the reason that the last 4 months of the year, September, October, November, December, were taken from the Latin for 7, 8, 9, and 10. Our original calendar only had 10 months. The early calendars of the year were named after popular Roman gods. By the 6th century BC, the 2 early months had been added to give a year of 354 days. You can see that after only 3 years, this calendar would have slipped by 3, so times 3, 334 days or over a month with respect to the seasons. This makes a very poor calendar. So it would have been off by 34 days. I think that's even I think it would have been off more than on the lunar calendar. So it wouldn't have been very inaccurate, because I think the lunar calendar was only like about 10 to 12 days that it was considered off around that time. So being off 34 days is was really, really bad. All right, so let's go ahead and continue. It makes for a very poor calendar. At the height of the Roman Empire, Julius Caesar reformed the calendar. He added the days to all the months to make a total of 365 and add a leap year to make an average of 365.25 days in the year. The months neatly alternated 30 and 31 days long, except February, which had a short count. The Romans were very superstitious, and February was chosen as a bad luck month. Interesting. It's very interesting how the year that is used for purification and ritual is also considered the bad. Well, maybe that's why. Now thinking about it, that's part of the reason why. If you're purifying things that are bad luck and making rituals out of that, then yeah, I can see why you would want to, I guess, make that a short month. Interesting. No Roman would travel. No Roman would travel or entertain during that month. Caesar also took the next unnamed month for himself, which wasn't really unnamed, but was named Quintilis. But he took that month for himself. So we have July after Julius. The Emperor Augustus followed Caesar, and his ego dictated that he grabbed the next available month for himself. So we have August after Augustus. However, in the alternating sequence, his month was shorter than Caesar's month. So he arbitrarily added a day to it. Then to preserve the same sum of days, he had to add and subtract a day from the rest of the months. This is why you have to say a little rhyme to remember the months, the number of days within each month. Interesting. Let me see what y'all have to say here. All right. I hope everybody's following along. I hope you're not getting bored. This is one of those type of nerdy things for me. I like learning about stuff like this because it's important to know. It's very important to know. So the Julian calendar was quite accurate. It would lose 300. It would lose like 0.1 days per year. This error is systematic, always in the same direction, unlike a random measurement error. As a consequence, this tiny error steadily accumulated as centuries passed, and by the 16th century, the calendar has slipped by 10 days. Wow. So in 1582, this whole thing, the need to control the season and times and stuff, is really something. And so in 1582, Pope Gregory moved the date forward 10 days by decree. He also added an extra rule that leap years should also be skipped in century years unless it was divisible by 400. In other words, 900 was not a leap year, but 2000 will be. By this little trick, the Gregorian calendar had an average year that is 365.2422 days long. That is a thousandth of a day of the astrological number. So it would be many thousands of years before the Gregorian calendar needs an adjustment. Interestingly, the United States and England waited another 180 years to make the switch as an act of independence by these primarily Protestant countries against the imposition of a Catholic calendar. Wow. This is quite interesting, the history of this stuff. So well, that's pretty much, there you have it there, what led us to this point. But let's continue on. There's still a little bit more here. Religion also figures predominantly in the distinction between a solar and lunar calendar. If biblical texts are followed explicitly, the major Christian holiday of Easter is tied to a lunar calendar, and so cannot always fall on a Sunday. The Eastern Orthodox Church split from the Catholic Church over this issue in 325 AD, and the Orthodox Jewish calendar is also lunar. All Islamic countries follow a lunar calendar. Seasonal changes are not as noticeable in the Middle East, so there's less reason to key the calendar to the sun. Agriculture in the major Middle East civilizations is usually governed by irrigation and major uh, rivers and is less sensitive to the seasonal changes. All Islamic uh, countries have a crescent moon on their flag. This is an indication that festivals and holidays depend on observations of the new moon. Um, a lunar calendar would have very quickly shift will very quickly shift with respect to a solar calendar. 12 lunar months give a year that is 354 days long. Islamic festivals such as Ramadan and the pilgrimage to Mecca therefore advance through our calendar by 11 days every year. Um, every 33 years, they shift through an entire cycle of our seasons. This simple but deep-rooted difference in calendars is maybe one reason why Arab and Western cultures have difficulty in communicating and understanding each other. So this again goes connecting the dots. All right, that's good, Lawanda. All right. So this goes to show how people are still following the lunar calendar as far as keeping up with festivals and celebrations and certain things regarding the cycles revolving phases of the sun. I'm sorry, the phases of the moon, and how it relates to those periods. But everyone follows, or almost everyone follows, the solar calendar to keep track of the days. And the way that we were even able to try to deduce all that to that it's really something. But I noticed that it keeps saying that there it's going to always have to be some type of readjustment. I even which had me wonder if the daylight savings time. I don't know. I don't think so. But if there's always going to have to be some type of readjustment that is going to have to occur with that. All right. So there is that. Let's see what else. All right. So I still have more of these things here to share. I hope everybody's learning something from this. I hope everybody's connecting the dots. Um, so the next thing that we're going to talk about, since everything is built around the equinox, being able to chart through the cycles of the equinox and follow the seasons, as opposed to doing things from the lunar calendar, I thought it was very important that we were able to look through the importance of the equinox and the solstices, especially when we're talking about entering in the seasons and why it was so important to track these seasons with the solar calendar. All right, so that's going to be the next thing that we're going to look into. Give me just a moment. All right, so now we are in difference between what is the difference between what not. All right, so let's add this to the stage, and okay, well that's not important. My face will be down there. So, so it says you may know that the solstices and equinoxes signal the changes of the season on Earth. But do you remember which is which? Are they just different names for the same thing? Actually, a solstice and an equinox are sort of opposites. All these ads. Um, so the seasons of the Earth change because the planet is slightly tilted on its axis as it travels across around the Earth. This means different points on the Earth receive more or less sunlight at different times of year. If if Earth was not the equator, the amount of light a given location receives would be no. There would also be no need to mark equinoxes or solstices. All right. So moving on, the solstices happen in 20 or 21st, and December 21st or 22nd. These are days when the sun's path in the sky are farthest. Hemisphere, winter solstice is the shortest day of the longest. In the northern hemisphere, directly overhead at the Tropic of Cancer. And at this point, the South Pole is tilted closer to the sun, and the sun's rays are directly overhead at the Tropic of Capricorn. Um, so I think eventually we're going to have to talk about how each of these topic right there, because I don't really know, but I'm very interested in learning about that. Um, um, the equinoxes happen in March, around March 21st, and September, around September 23rd. These are the days when the sun is exactly above the equator, which makes day and night of equal lengths. Let's see. So in the northern hemisphere, you have a storm. Also, Thursday, you pretty much wanted the the seasons pretty much. So from the aspect of moving from a lunar calendar to a solar calendar, the ideas of having these different months marking the calendar, um, and even to where we having like certain times of the year um, marking a particular marking through the equinox and the solstices, they all play a role in how we are able to govern the times. So everything has been done from what I'm seeing and been taking the time to understand. Everything has been done from the standpoint of making sure that we are accurately tracking the seasons, um, and in turn, anything that we may have as our own holidays, our own personal, um, not even personal, but like even more of like ethnic or occult like things, they are done from the standpoint of the lunar calendar. So the lunar calendar is not really trusted to keep track um keep track of time, but also to make sure that we're keeping track of the seasons, because time flows in with the seasons and the rotation of the earth, and the rotation of the earth and the axis and everything. So that was when I really took the time to look into these things, because there's a whole lot. You can see that there's a whole lot just from um much of what is a weapon is our ignorance of really knowing how things function when it comes to trying to navigate through the seasons, especially with how the months been able to were where people are trying to navigate through the months, especially, trying to get the perfect number of days, and not even really. And here we are now. We take it for granted that we have something like this, all the time. We're talking about we're different calendar, but we don't really understand why they chose not to do that. Or, even when it comes to daylight savings time, or why they're moving the time, which we're gonna go into that too. And that's part of where I think that whole time thing is kind of used more like as a weapon from that point. But a lot of that is just really due to our ignorance. And so I think that really taking our time to really understand um the world that we live in, just even from our months. Like I didn't even like. I remember I didn't even know how the months were made, and um, where the origin of the month came from. Only very recently, that I really started diving more into it, and how mythology and beliefs. We may not, and people talk about paganism, but the truth of the matter is, these are the type of things that are done to help us keep track on the world because of what the system that was done to create it. So there's that, and then let's go into time of the savings time. I do think we start being more mindful and probably take things a little when it comes to kind of like navigating through the daylight savings time that we're in. I think I did something like this. I have done something like this before, but video, we of being in perpetual daylight savings time, which itself is not healthy for us long term. But I think even with the daylight savings time that we have now, we have to understand how we got that and the dangers that it's using, because it's getting us out of alignment with the not necessarily the season, but with the rhythm of time that our body needs to adjust. So let's get into that really quickly. And I think that I will call it alive. All right. So there is that. Let's see. Can I do it this way? Okay, no, I can't do it that way because that would completely bot me out. Yeah, this is do. All right, so here we go. This is the 7 things to know about daylight savings time. The change of clock means misalignment with our body's natural rhythm. So I wanted to the reason why I wanted to talk about the whole thing with how things were organized with the calendars and stuff is because everything was done to ensure that things would be in line with the seasons. Um, Even though there are cultures that have their holidays and they have their rituals and things like that, um, it was done to ensure that everything was moving in accordance to the rotation of the earth. Because I honestly think that in doing so, it was for the well-being of not only of keeping track of time, but I think there was a lot that was for our good as well in trying to manage that. So let's go into it. This was done last year on March 9th, 2023. Okay, so on Sunday, which at that time, most of the U.S. will advance their clocks 1 hour for daylight savings time. The change means disruptions in the sleep pattern of over 300 million people, the effects of which will doubtlessly be felt and seen nearly everywhere. Survey from the American Academy of Sleep Medicine have found that about 63% of Americans would prefer to eliminate daylight savings time, and 55% experience tiredness following the switch. But the time of transition does more than just inspire mixed emotions, grogginess, and foul moods. Researchers say that the change has long-term negative consequences for our bodies and mind. So here are 7 things that we've learned about changing to daylight savings time affects our lives. About how changing to daylight savings time affects our lives. Okay. Making a shift increases your health risk. The scientific evidence points to acute increases in adverse health consequences from changing the clocks, including a heart attack and stroke, says sleep expert Adam Spira, PhD, a professor in mental health. The change is also associated with the heightened risk of mood disturbances and hospital admission, as well as elevated production of inflammatory markers in response to stress. The potential for car crashes also spiked just after the spring forward, Spira says. A 2020 study found that the switch raises the risk of fatal traffic accidents by 6%. DSD was an act to conserve energy, but today it may do the opposite. Benjamin Franklin invented the concept in 1784, believing that rising earlier would economize candle usage and save people money. Pushing clocks forward to make greater use of daylight during the warmer months was formally adopted during World War I as a part of a global attempt to conserve energy. That rationale is part of what keeps DST in practice. But the theory is wobbly. According to research like this 2017 paper published in the International Association for Energy Economics Journal, which we'll look into, as society has evolved, lighting accounts for less overall energy consumption. Rather, extending the use of daylight hours encourages people to use more air conditioning and heating. Right, because it's very hot, particularly if you're in the summertime, particularly if you're in the south, it's very hot. Other proponents say that additional daylight in the evening hours during the spring and summer are beneficial to the mental health of those who work during the day. That too has been refuted from data in a 2020 study published in PLOS, suggests that the change exacerbates mood disorders, depression, anxiety, and substance use. Okay? A difference 1 hour makes. And if there's anything that we learned from if there's anything that we have learned from the calendars, it is that the things add up, things accumulate over time. It's just like with money, right? Anything that you do over time is going to add up. Anything that you spend over time, anything you save or invest over time, they are going to find its way to accumulate. So if we're not careful of how that accumulation functions with our being off every hour, then it plays a role in our health. But let's go ahead and continue forward. There's still more that I want to discuss here. So more after hour sunshine doesn't necessarily mean a healthier you. Sunlight is the most powerful synchronizer of our circadian rhythm, the internal generated clock our bodies follow. Spirit says while it is advantageous to have more time for outdoor activities in the evening, exposure to more light close to bedtime makes it harder to fall asleep at our usual bedtime and can reduce the amount of sleep we're able to get each night. We also lose light in the morning, leaving many of us waking up in the dark. That's bad, Spirit says, because the exposure to light in the morning has an alerted effect and helps to maintain a strong circadian rhythm. We function best when our sleep-wake cycle follows the sun. We get sleepy due in part to melatonin release when it gets dark. In the spring, when we switch to daylight saving time, we increase the amount of light we're exposed to in the evening hours. Next up, less sleep means more health risks. Moving our clocks forward in the spring results in going to sleep and waking up before our internal clocks are ready for us to. This misalignment lasts for the duration of DST, Spirit says, and can reduce the amount of sleep we're able to get due to the detriment of our health. The consequences of insufficient sleep include decrease in cardiovascular health, increase in diabetes and obesity, poor mental health, lower cognitive performance, and an increase in the risk of motor vehicle accidents, he says. For certain groups, these time changes have a greater negative impact. Populations in the western edges of the time zones who get light later in the morning and evening, and people with little control over their schedules as shift workers who drive to work very early are more at risk for misalignment. Adolescents who get less sleep often have behavioral, learning, and attention issues, as well as an increase of accidents, injuries, high blood pressure, obesity, and diabetes, and mental health problems. A 2015 study published in the Journal of Clinical Sleep Medicine found that during school days after the time change, students were sleepier, had slower reaction times, and were less attentive. Um, the DSD could be permanent. This was last year, so this was all the talk and buzz about, the permanent daylight savings time, which I said before. But that's not really the case now. But we're still going to read it anyway. Um, there's been some buzz in recent years about transitioning to permanent daylight savings time to the Sunshine Protection Act, which didn't happen. But Spirit is in favor of permanent standard time. The Sunshine Protection Act would cause the permanent misalignment of our eternal clock with the time on our social clocks, the clocks on our wall, wrist, and phones. That would be bad for our health for the health of the U.S. population. Um, the evidence of accidents at risk follow the change is so great that the AASM has said it favors abolishing DST entirely for permanent standard time. So there are ways to manage the change. Fortunately, most people can acclimate to the time change within a week or so, Spirit says. To make it easy, the AASM offers a list suggested to help you prepare, like gradually adjusting your sleeping and waking time. Setting your clock 1 hour ahead 1 hour Saturday evening and going to bed at your normal bedtime and getting outside for some exposure to early morning sunlight on Sunday. I would like to go into some of these, but this one is really to talk about how this affects our how the daylight savings time and what seemed like it's beneficial in moving us forward because we want to take advantage of the daylight, or you may have like international connections with trying to connect with people on a social level. It actually has very dangerous consequences as the hours accumulate over time and getting us out of our rhythm. So I wanted to talk about the things about what we may not know about time and the season calendar, because there was a lot of painstaking efforts to ensure that we were in line with the seasons. We were in line with things that were, especially when it came to our holidays, and things and that time were done for like religious purposes, ritual purposes, occult purposes, and things like that. But there was a lot of pains to ensure that we were in line with, in balance, in harmony, not only with just the season, but just with nature in general. And so with things like daylight savings time and how it falls in line with the beginning of the cycle, the vernal equinox cycle, which I consider, and in the past, even here in the United States, March 25th, I believe, was considered the time of the new year. Before it was changed to January 1st. And so I want to encourage all of you to make sure that you are paying attention to the cycles. If you are somebody who has been feeling more irritated, more depressed, more agitated, particularly as we started this month of March with daylight savings time, it may not just simply be you. It could be just due to the fact of your biological rhythm being misaligned with the daylight savings time. And so you may have to start, if I would say that you probably will want to start having more rest, making sure that you're taking care of yourself more. I know that there's more daylight. We have more. Well, right now it's pretty even with the nights and the days. So make sure that you're using this as an opportunity to get yourself in the back of rhythm as much as you can. If you have to start getting a little bit more rest, you may need to do that. But also make sure, like again, even when it comes to our health, like we already know that we as the United States, there are a lot of things that make us sick. We have a lot of foods and stuff that's out there. A lot of stuff, you know, particularly if you're working a lot, you're already stressed from the work um, environment and things like that. And now we have this time change that seems like it's minor because it's an hour, but an hour really does make a difference. And that accumulation adds up. So I want you all to ensure that to make sure that you are taking care of yourself, that you're paying attention to these cycles. And not everything is what it seems. We're so used to our lives and these calendars and these times to present to us that this is the reality when it may not exactly be the case. Now, even though I do understand why they were able to track the seasons as they did, and as the way that the cycles is supposed to be, things can be off as far as where we are supposed to be in managing our time, our personal time. We all have the collective time, but also with our personal time, and in particular with the daylight savings time, it has a negative effect on us. So be mindful of the season that we are in, especially if you are somebody who is not just simply on the natural time, but you're more spiritual. You follow rituals, you follow certain things, you follow certain patterns. This is something that is very key to keep in mind. And I don't know if I would ever do like a part two to this. I'm actually surprised I lasted as long as I did. This is over an hour. Wow. But I hope this was something that was very insightful. I hope this made sense. I hope the reason why I did this makes sense. And from a more logical point of view, I like trying to understand the logic of things. I know everybody kind of has like occult rituals or religious practices involving the seasons. And I do take note of that. But I think it's very important to ensure that we are following things as they make sense. And I like following the timeline and the logic of things. So that's what you'll be seeing from me, especially with the articles that I bring up, because I want things to make sense, not just seem as if though these are things that we're supposed to do and believe, but there's things that should add up with what it is that you're doing. All right. So I think that is that. I hope everyone was able to have a little fun with that. So thank you, by the way, for those who managed to follow along with the poll. You guys, I had a very hard time deciding whether if I was going to do this first, if I was going to talk about some of the stuff that I've been seeing from Quiet on the Set. I am going to talk about that. I have you know me, I have my viewpoints. And we're going to discuss some stuff. Basically, how this documentary has shown my all my childhood shows were were basically nightmares on film. Um, uh, Pretty much, especially for those who were the actors and the cast on the set. But I, it's the aftermath of it, and even before that, but especially the aftermath of this, that really shown, and even before that, like even seeing things online, how there is so much protection for abusers and um, predators, and there's so many enablers and sympathizers and apologists of it. Yet, Empress Kid, you need to watch it. And I'm not really somebody that try to tell people what they should be doing as far as watching stuff. Empress Kid, you need to watch that documentary. It's been part of a conversation that has been had for a very long time. Particularly, we talk about with Dan Schneider. But this one that is a documentary that must be seen. Particularly if you were somebody who did watch those old Nickelodeon shows, like I did when I was younger, and never really understood things behind the scenes. So it's very, very important to watch it if you're interested in that. Um, but in any case, I hope that was fun for you all. I like learning this type of stuff. I like talking about these types of things. It allows me to have things that seem spiritual make logical sense, and it gives me more of a reason to follow it as opposed to just simply doing it because this is something to believe. So that's that. Thank you all for watching and tuning in. in. I'm gonna make sure that the comments are on, so that way that there are people who can comment and leave their feedback. Also, the other video, the other live that I did, give my updates, saying I was coming back and all that. The comments are up for that too. So if you want to be able to comment on there, you can do that as well. I just I just like recently had turned them on because I forgot about the child protection laws that is on YouTube, which is necessary, especially now with so many stuff that's going on with children. So with that said, thank you. I'm glad you enjoyed. You're welcome. You're very welcome. I'm so glad that you enjoyed. And that's gonna do it. We're gonna have may have a live stream coming up soon. I will have one next week regarding that topic of the abuses and stuff, and what I have to say about that. Not only just required on the set, but specifically the protection layer that is done for abuse and predators by enablers and apologists in all areas, not just simply up at the top when it comes to in the industry or in industries or in governments, but just in our common everyday lives. There is this layer of protection that keeps happening, and it's got to stop. It's very, very bad, and it keeps finding its way to be promoted. All right. So I will catch you guys next time. I hope you enjoy. By the way, make sure you hit the like button. And you can, if you're new here, you can click the subscribe button and you'll be able to catch more live streams like this. Catch you all next time. Bye-bye.